We're learning more today about the security failures that led to the deadly D.C. riots at the Capitol earlier this month. Hear why Congress is now launching a full investigation as to why the Capitol dome's giant atomic vaporizing ray wasn't deployed to eviscerate the rioters. From The Onion and Onion Public Radio, this is The Topical. I'm Leslie Price, and I'm calling for unity between your ears and the news. So let's try to find some common ground right after this. Could it have all been avoided? That's the question being asked after the deadly riot in Washington, D.C. earlier this month, in which hundreds of Trump supporters stormed the United States Capitol building, and now Congress has announced it will be launching a full investigation into the security failures that allowed the mob into the complex, specifically to answer why the Capitol dome's atomic vaporizing ray wasn't deployed to quell the rioters. I'm joined by OPR Washington correspondent Rebecca Neal, who has more information on this story. Rebecca, welcome.
Thanks, Leslie.
Now, Rebecca, we're aware of some security breakdowns that allowed the crowd to get past several barriers, but this one stands out as most egregious.
That's right. The Capitol dome is equipped with a 30-foot-long, 2-ton atomic vaporizing ray capable of incinerating multiple moving targets of biological mass instantly.
Sure.
Disintegrating large groups of threatening protesters into small piles of ash is exactly what the ray was built to do, and members of Congress want to know why it wasn't utilized to handle the insurrection. I spoke with Wisconsin Representative Ron Kind, who was part of the nonpartisan congressional panel to review what exactly went wrong. Here he is.
We're conducting a full inquiry into why the protesters infiltrating the Capitol complex weren't stopped by supercharged electro-radioactive lasers instantaneously combusting every single cell in their bodies. This country spends billions of dollars on defense, and yet we can't even manage to organize a simple evisceration of a few hundred citizens with our state-of-the-art military death ray. It's shocking.
Congressman Kind and his colleagues also want to know why the government wasn't better prepared when the FBI reported some Trump supporters using social media to publicly plan this insurgency in the weeks after the November election. Kind says this would have given authorities more than enough time to charge the energy cells of the Capitol's high-powered death machine.
Certainly. Do officials have any idea as to where things broke down there?
Some. We've now received reports in the days since the riots that multiple Capitol officials struggled to get the required approval needed to push the big red button that activates the ray.
Why's that?
Some think that these hurdles were due to a concern over the optics of dozens of American citizens screaming in horror as their eyes melted out of their sockets and their bodies completely dematerialized. But legislators like Kind say authorities use a double standard compared to the level of force they would have shown against protesters if they hadn't been white.
Yeah.
Here's Congressman Kind again.
Do Capitol Police really expect us to believe they would have just opened the gates for armed rioters if they had been giant green or blue extraterrestrials trying to invade the Capitol and harvest our organs? I don't think so. White privilege definitely played a role here.
No doubt. Now, Rebecca, I understand that the investigation has already prompted several big security changes that were put into place in time for the presidential inauguration. Were these a success?
Absolutely. At President Biden's inauguration, we saw a much larger security cyborg presence, as well as authorized police use of brain-rupturing sonic shock cannons and a 10-foot widening of the lava moat that circles the perimeter of the National Mall.
I'm sure that was a welcome relief for legislators and guests.
Yes, and the extra vigilant precautions may have prevented another insurrection after the atomic vaporizing ray was deployed on an increasingly rowdy mob of people at the Capitol. We have a clip of the incident. Authorities are still sifting through the remains to figure out if these were rioters or just excited inauguration attendees.
Sounds like they were up to no good either way. Thanks, Rebecca. That's OPR's Rebecca Neal. We'll be back in a moment. Well, folks, cancel culture has finally reared its ugly head, and in the most sacred of spaces, the children's toy industry. Yesterday evening, toy conglomerate Whizco announced a ban on one of their most popular items, all just because of 3 stupid dead kids. Here with more is recreation correspondent Alan Potts. Alan, what the hell's going on over at Whizco?
Well, Leslie, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission has forced the recall of 245,000 Aqua Assault RoboFighters after the 3rd death of some idiot kid who wasn't even playing with it right. Here's Whizco CEO Alvin Cassidy's statement at a press conference Monday night.
The tragedy is inconceivable. For years, countless children played with the Aqua Assault RoboFighter without incident. But then these 3 dumbasses come along and somehow find a way to get themselves killed. Like that's somehow our fault? So now we have to do a full recall and halt production on what was a really awesome toy. What a waste!
It does seem like a waste. Weren't there any warnings on the package?
That's the thing, Leslie. There are the standard warnings on the toy's packaging about pinch points and choking hazards, but the kids who died seemingly got so creative in finding ways to fuck themselves up with these toys that no existent warning could have prevented it. Here's Alvin again.
We at Wisco have always gone above and beyond when it comes to product safety, from our raw materials to our toy design to our package labels. And despite the fact that these deaths were truly out of the realm of what we could have reasonably predicted a pea-brained, drooling moron of a piece of shit kid could accomplish with our frankly innocuous toy, we have no choice but to respect the ruling of the Safety Commission.
Wow, these kids sound really, really stupid. Now, not to get dark, Alan, but how exactly did the little dullards manage to off themselves?
I had the same question, Leslie. So I did some research, and it turns out the first imbecile was a 7-year-old who died after deliberately firing one of the spring-loaded plastic missiles into his left nostril. The missile shot into his sinuses, shattering the roof of his nasal cavity and causing a massive brain hemorrhage.
Brutal, but it sounds like there wasn't much brain in there to hemorrhage anyway.
There sure wasn't. In fact, shortly before dying, the child told emergency medical personnel that he had shot the missile into his nose in the belief that it would travel through his body and out his belly button.
Just mind-boggling. And how about Killjoy Bastard number 2?
Less than 1 month after the first death, a 5-year-old in Indiana fatally suffocated on fragments of the toy after repeatedly smashing it with a claw hammer in the garage of her parents' home, thinking the shards were, quote, candy.
Absolutely unfucking believable. Do I even want to know about the third?
The third numbskull's death I actually had a bit of trouble finding any information on, so I spoke directly to a member of the medical staff who was on duty when he was rushed into the emergency room. Here's what she had to say.
The patient apparently held the RoboFighter above his head and jumped off the balcony of his family's third-story apartment, thinking he would be able to fly like Superman. And he was 11 years old. 11. If you're 11 years old, you should know that it's impossible to fly. Yeah, poor Wisco's probably going to go bankrupt because of these little shitheads.
Wow, that's a HIPAA violation if I've ever seen one. So what does the Safety Commission have to say about all this?
Well, Leslie, it's the U.S. Product Safety Commission's job to ensure the protection of consumers, especially the young morons. But that doesn't mean they're happy about having to ban such an awesome toy. I spoke to CPSC Commissioner Mary Sheila Gall to get her perspective.
I know the overwhelming majority of American kids who owned an Aqua Assault RoboFighter derived many hours of safe, responsible fun from it. But statistically speaking, 3 deaths stemming from contact with a particular toy constitutes an unreasonable risk, and our agency's job is to protect the public from hazardous products, even if those who die are imbecile cretins who deserved what they got.
Well, that's just great. I hope those loser-ass kids are happy up in heaven or wherever the little moron bastards go after they die, because they've officially ruined the fun for all of us.
You said it, Leslie.
Well, I don't care what the CSPC or whatever the hell they call themselves says. I, for one, won't be handing over my Aqua Assault RoboFighter because it just so happens to be my favorite toy. And if they want to come pry it from my large adult hands, then they can be my Ow! Fuck! My eye! It poked me in the eye! Shit! Go! We'll be right back. Fuck, I think I popped it. God, no. Hypnotism. The power of suggestion. Is it real? How does it work? Can you control the minds of others by putting them into a dreamlike state? Well, it looks like we may soon find out after the nation's hypnotist recently announced that we are all now under their complete control. I'm joined by OPR reporter Marcy Hammond. Hello, Marcy.
Hello, Leslie.
So, Marcy, have any of these reports been confirmed? Are we really under the complete control of the nation's hypnotists?
Well, it certainly appeared that way at a press conference last night where hypnotist Jeff Powers, speaking on behalf of all the hypnosis experts in the country, put the entire population in a hypnotic trance and said all 328 million were now bound to do their bidding. Take a listen.
Your eyelids are getting very heavy. That's right, America. You can barely keep them open. You're falling asleep. And you're asleep. When I snap my fingers, nation, you will awaken as if nothing happened, but you will be completely under our power and do exactly as we say. Now, awaken!
Mr. Powers, Jim Garrison, New York Times. What authority do hypnotists have to order around the American people?
Well, I'll tell you. Be a donkey. Your weak will against the power of suggestion gives us total authority. From now on, you all will do exactly as we tell you. Now, buck your colleague, donkey. Oh, listen closely, America. You're all going to get down on all fours. That's it. Now crawl. Crawl around like babies. That's right. You're all babies. Cry babies.
Powers claims to have had every man, woman, and child rolling on the floor and wailing like infants for a full hour. And when he snapped his fingers again, they woke from the trance having no idea what they were doing on their backs or why they'd even been crying.
Well, I was sucking my thumb last night, but I've been doing that for years.
Well, so far, they've commanded hundreds of millions of U.S. citizens to gallop around like horses, perform the song Single Ladies in unison, and quit smoking.
But Marcy, I thought the majority of quote-unquote hypnotized people were just playing along, faking it out of peer pressure and the desire to not disappoint the hypnotist. Is it possible that's all that was going on here?
Well, that's true for the most part, Leslie. Most people were just doing it because everyone else was doing it. However, there are some people who are genuinely susceptible to hypnotism. They're usually the most suggestible and weak-willed among us, and those people will probably jump off a bridge if they're told to while hypnotized, or even slip back into a trance at any moment when they hear the command word given by the hypnotist. Luckily, those slow-witted people are anomalous. Leslie?
Did you say anomalous?
Yes.
Hee-haw!
Leslie? Are you okay?
Yes. Thank you, Marcy. Now, hee-haw! I'm sorry, but you see, you are a threat to the hypnotist.
Leslie, what are you doing? Put down the gun!
Hee-haw! Excuse me. Thank you, Marcy. Oh, Marcy, you really shouldn't sleep on the studio floor. I cannot begin to tell you what's been absorbed by that carpeting. Marcy? Well, folks, I've got a mess on my hands here that even a bidet can't clean up, so it looks like I've got to flee the country again. But before I go, here's a bit more news to remember me by. Here's what else you need to know today. Good news in the fight against the coronavirus, as the CDC has announced that the country is now on track to chuck out at least 1 million expired COVID vaccines per day. Newly appointed CDC Director Rochelle Walensky expressed her optimism for achieving the ambitious goal and added that if they're able to keep up their current pace, they may be able to shit-can the entire U.S. stockpile by the summer. And speaking of illness, the Gates Foundation is looking to rid the world of one more today, pledging more than $25 billion toward eradicating whatever disease it is that drives people to support taxing the rich. And finally, state legislators in Iowa are looking to make their streets a little safer for those behind the wheel and are today advocating for all drivers 55 and older to be retested for adequate roadhead safety. Makes sense to me. Once you get past a certain age, getting blown behind the wheel can be downright dangerous for everyone involved. And that's the Topical for today. I'm Leslie Price. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can like and subscribe to The Topical wherever you get your podcast. And if you didn't like it, then perhaps staring into this pocket watch I have here will change your mind. Yes, look into it. Follow it as it goes back and forth. Back and forth. Do you like The Topical now? Oh, wait. You can't see this. Only I can see this. Oh, now I'm getting sleepy. Oh. Well, be sure to tune in next. Hee-haw! To the top. Hee-haw! The news doesn't stop just because this YouTube video has. For even more on all the worst things happening in the world right now, listen and subscribe to The Topical on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, you insatiable news freaks.